Welcome and Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And we're going to do the shares that we've been doing. So I will also, God willing, have the map too. So we are, remember, okay, I'll go to the map for a second. So we are talking about Israel at the point of, this is, of course, the map of the journeys of the Israelites, starting off at Ramses, all the way down here, okay, by way of the wilderness. And at least many people think Mount Sinai is around here. Okay, but here you notice how they go down and then up north to go through this place where they finally enter the land of Canaan, which of course is outside the Torah. So here we are, right here, and this, of course, this is at Mount Nebo up here. This is this. But what I want to point out to you is the location of these three basic tribes, okay? So that here is Edom, here is Moab, right north of Edom. And then Ammon, okay, up here, the Ammonites, right? Moab and Ammon are all descendants of Lot. And here is the land of the Amorites, and here's Bashan, right? You see here. So this is the area that the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh took, right in this area here. Okay. So we're going to mention Ammon, and I just thought we hadn't really pointed out the location of these particular tribes. So I'll go back now to the text. Ata over hayom et gvul Moav et Ar. You are going to pass through today the border of Moab and Ar. Right, that Moab and Ar, it's the same thing essentially. Here we are. Rashi does the next verse as well, so maybe we will too, and then go back to the Rashi. V'karavta mul b'nei Ammon, and you shall draw close now to the opposite, the children of Ammon. Al titzuram, do not. I'm going to say besiege them. Right? I think there are other translations that suggest harass, but a matzor is a siege, and he also, notice, tetzur alehon. Interesting, right? In other words, it certainly sounds, the Aramaic sounds as if it means you should not lay siege to them, right? Ve'al titgarbam, and do not incite them. And I put down the root of the Hebrew there. Ki lo eten me'eretz b'nei Ammon l'chal Yerusha, for I am not giving to you from the land of the children of Ammon as an inheritance. Ki livnei Lot netatiha Yerusha, for to the children, the descendants of Lot, I have given as an inheritance. So I think there's some really important points about this, right? Is that, it wasn't the idea of the land of Canaan coming into the possession of the Israelites was totally underscored by a promise God had made to Abraham, and also underscored by the notion, and I think this carries today, of living as a righteous nation, that their laws and their practices and their beliefs all should be directed towards serving God, and that people should see this. And that was their title. You can see the title to the land of Israel. It wasn't because they were more powerful, anything like that, but the idea that God had determined that these particular areas should go to the Israelites. And what I think is really perhaps a point of greatness of the Bible is here, where this is not the first time we've come across this idea that there were other territories that God had not assigned to the Jewish people, to the Israelites, and they had no right to do anything to incite or bully or anything like that those surrounding nations. and that the title to the land, because that is, of course, an issue, is what right a people has to a particular piece of real estate, and by what rights is ownership granted. And the idea that God, the idea isn't simply Gott mit uns, right? That whatever we do, God is giving us by definition, but rather the other way around. That the only reason we could go into the land of Canaan and take over the land of Canaan was because of this promise God had made and these conditions, right? It was a covenant, meaning it isn't just a question of what God gives us, it's also a question of what we agree to give back. And that idea, if people realize that deeply, might eventually resolve some of the issues going on today. So, just interesting that here in the book of Deuteronomy, we have such a concept that there are these other nations. And of course, we know that Lot was Abraham's nephew, that he went along with Abraham. And now we can see that, in a sense, those stories in Genesis that talk about Abraham and Lot are a foreshadowing of what we're reading right now. So let's go back to the Rashi. Ata over hayom et gvul Moav v'gomer. You are traversing today the border of Moab, etc. The karavta mul, and you shall draw close bnei Ammon, to the children of Ammon. And simply Rashi said, Mikan she'eretz Ammon letzad tzafon. That from this we can infer that the land of Ammon was north, on the north side. So, Eretz Repha'im techashev afhi. So we've had these Repha'im mentioned before. A land of giants. It is considered techashev afhi. It too is considered a land of Repha'im. Repha'im yashvu al lefanim. Earlier on, the Repha'im had inhabited it. Ammonim, and the Ammonites, Yikru'u lahem Zamzumim, and the Ammonites refer to these Repha'im as Zamzumim. Eretz Repha'im techashev. It is also considered a land of Repha'im. Eretz Repha'im nechshevet afhi. So he's simply putting it in perhaps clearer Hebrew. It too is considered the land of Rephaim, lefi sheharephaim yashvuva lefanim, because the Rephaim dwelt there in earlier times, before. Aval lo zohi shenatati la'Avraham. Look at what Rashi adds. He says, however, this is not the land that I have accorded to Abraham, right? But rather to Lot and the descendants of Lot. So this idea of the land of Canaan, you know, being possessed by the Israelites who are descendants of Abraham, again, you know, heavily underscored as to what title the Israelites have to these other territories, to the land of Canaan. Let's see. Here we go. Am gadol v'rav v'ram ka'anakim. This nation, these Rephaim, were great and numerous and exalted, you could say, ka'anakim, like giants. Vayashmidem Hashem mipnehem, and the Lord destroyed them from before them, that is to say, the Ammonites, Vayirashum, and the Moabites, and they inherited them, Vayeshvu tachtam, and they inhabited it in their place. So I'm thinking to myself again, in trying to look at the literary elements of the story, you know, what associations we have with giants and the description of these Rephaim that dwelt there. And I suspect that, you know, primarily we're looking at physical strength, and the fact that physical strength was not enough to protect them against what God had determined. And again, I think to underscore the connection that we need to have to our Creator, to the divine Creator, and seeing this earth of ours, this area that we inhabit, to be totally under God's dominion and to try to be able to associate our own lives with the capacity to perform the divine will. And the truth, of course, is, and I've been thinking about it these days, that when we say the Aleinu prayer at the end of our services, we directly link a common human belief in one ultimate God, one ultimate transcendent creator, with the notion of wanting to serve that creator and living in harmony and peace with all of God's creation. That those two ideas are indelibly linked. Oh, let me look and see whether there is a Rashi on this. No, not till 23. Okay. Ka'asher asa livnei Esav, just as he had performed for the descendants of Esau, Hayoshvim b'Seir, who dwell in Seir, and we know those mountains of Seir are lower down, they're further south. Asher hishmit et hachori mipnehem, in that he had destroyed the Horites from before them. Vayirashum, and in a sense, it means, they took over their possession, right? Vayeshvu tachtam, and they inhabited and dwelt in their place, ad hayom hazeh, to this very day. So the Israelites, the idea of justice involved is the fact that the same rules apply to everyone involved, right? But that rule is that it depends on who God has assigned these lands to, not simply power and might and strength. V'ha'avim hayoshvim b'chatzerim ad Aza, and referring to the avim who dwell in villages up until Gaza. Kaftorim hayotzim mikaftor ishmidum. So Kaftorim, I believe, it refers to Crete, the people who came out of Crete, Kaftor, destroyed them and dwelt in their place. And I believe, of course, we are talking about Philistines. So it's interesting, right, that the Torah here defines these other nations that are entitled to these particular lands as not only directly related, that is, Esau would be a direct relative. You've got Lot, who is a more distant relative, and you now have the Kaftorim, who are of no relationship whatsoever, but who also come and take over these particular territories that belonged presumably to the indigenous nation that was there to begin with. And I think that there are some suggestions, certainly in Genesis, to suggest that this kind of, swapping around of territories goes back time immemorial. So all ultimately the security is based on having a righteous nation occupying that place. So the Avim, Hayoshvim b'chatzerim, who dwell in the villages, and this is a reference in the Talmud to Chulin, page 60. Avim mi plishtim heim. So he says the Avim are from the Philistines. She'am imahim hem nechshavim, because they are considered along with them in the book of Joshua. And this is chapter 13 in the book of Joshua. Shinema, as it says, Hameshet sarnei plishtim, the 5 chieftains of the Philistines. Let's see, it looks like Ha'azati, the Gazan, Ha'ashdodi, and those who live in Ashdod, Ashkeloni. These are all Philistine towns that actually are modern towns as well, right? Ashkelon, Hagati, Gathite, excuse me 1 second, sorry. And the Ekronite, v'ha'avim, and there they are. So as Rashi is saying, so apparently they didn't destroy, the Philistines did not destroy them entirely, but they were a part of what became Philistine territory. Umipnei hashvuah shenishba Avraham la'Avimelech, and on account of the oath that Abraham swore to Avimelech, and if you remember back in Genesis, Avimelech is identified as a Philistine. Lo yachlu Yisrael. The Israelites were not able, they did not have the right, is what we mean when we say they were not able, lahotzi artsam miadam, to remove their territory from under their control. Veheveti Elohim kaftorim. Now this is interesting. So, my sense is that there's some need to clarify whether we consider the Philistines the earlier nation that lived there, or these Kaftorim, right? These people from Kaftor, from Crete. Vehishmidum, and they destroyed them, because it's suggesting something different now than what I was saying. You'll see, right? So we had these Philistines, and the Avim are one of those Philistine nations that, as I'm clarifying what Rashi is telling us here, right? And from outside, we had these people who came from Kaftor, who destroyed them, V'yashvu tachtam, and then they came and inhabited in their place. So the Kaftorim are not the Philistines, if I said that before, right? They were Philistines. The Avim were one of the Philistine people. We now have the Kaftorim, the people, the sea people from Crete, who came and destroyed them, attacked them and destroyed them, and took their place completely. V'achshav atem mutarim lakachtam miyadam. So that now I'm going to have to back up on what I had said before. I will not be able to stand by what I had said before about this nation, that the Kaftorim were settled in their place, because at least according to this opinion, the point now is that because they were Kaftorim, the Israelites were now given permission to take that territory from their control. Wow. And nowadays, of course, we are having tremendous issues going on here. So that's the interpretation there. My apologies, even though I did prepare this material, I had not recollected and fully understood the point that Rashi was making. And of course, lo Torah nikneit ela b'chavruta, one is not able to get Torah except in companionship, and my companionship with you has helped me clarify the point here that Rashi's making. So I hope you will bear with me on that. Okay, let's keep going. Make sure I did this. Okay, here we go. Kumu Sa'u, arise and journey for Ivru, and cross over at Nachal Arnon, the river Arnon. Re'ei natati be'adcha, behold, I've placed under your control at Sichon, king HaCheshbon of Cheshbon HaEmori, the Amorite, ve'et Arzo, and his land, HaChel Resh, go and occupy it and inherit it. Ve'hidgar bo milchama, and incite against him war. So let's take a look quickly at the Arnon. I want to see if I can show you the Arnon River. We're going to need to look very carefully. So let's see if we can find it. Sadly, it's not real clear. So it's hard to see. Here it is, Arnon. Can you make that out? So there's the Arnon River. They were going to have to cross the Arnon River and go up to the land of the Amorites. So there's the Arnon River. And let's see, they also, remember they talk about the Wadi Zered. There's the Wadi Zered that they had to cross earlier on. So just wanting to show you what's going on there. Okay. Let's see if there's any Rashi on this. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Hayom hazeh, this day, achel teit pachtacha v'yiratcha. Today, this day, I will begin to give the fear of you, to place the fear of you and the awe of you al pnei ha'alamim, on the face of the nations, tachat kol hashamayim, underneath the entire heavens. Asher yishma'un shimacha, who will hear about you, v'ragzu, they will quake, v'chalu mipanecha, and tremble before you. Tachat kol hashamayim, underneath all the heavens, below all the heavens. And this is from Tractate Ta'anit, page 20, and Avodah Zarah, page 25 in the Talmud. Okay. I think it's Lamad, right? So we learn, right? She'amda chama l'Moshe, that the sun stood for Moses. That's the S-U-N, the sun. B'yom milchemet Og, on the day of the battle against Og. Sefarim acherim Sichon, other manuscripts of Rashi say Sichon and not Og. Remember, these were these two Amorite kings. V'nodah hadavar tachat kol hashamayim. And everyone heard about this. So we don't read about this directly in the Torah. It is something that's inferred, but we do read about the sun standing still for Joshua in one of his battles. And exactly what happened, how we're to understand this, I'm not entirely sure. Certainly it contravenes natural law in a profound kind of way. And maybe the expression "the sun stood still" represents something that should not be taken literally. Maybe it's a type of hyperbole. I'm not sure. I have not read any really profound explanations of this, but clearly it was the kind of miracle where people who heard of it would be put in awe. Va'eshlach malachim. Okay, and in a way, there's a break here. Moses goes on to tell the Israelites, Va'eshlach malachim mimibar kedemot, and I sent out messengers from the desert. And kedemot, it sounds like the name of a desert, but kadum means earlier, right, before. El Sichon, to Sichon, king of Heshbon, divrei shalom lemor, words of peace saying. So point of this is that prior to engaging in battle, Moses sent out messengers to Sichon offering terms of peace. Let me tell you what those peace terms are before I go back to the Rashi, who's going to discuss the a Talmudic understanding of this midbar kedemot. So these are the terms of the peace that we're talking about. Ebra ba'artzecha, let me traverse your land. Baderech elech, I will say, stay strictly on the road. Lo asur yamin small, I will not turn to the right or to the left. In other words, basically the main highway. They just stick to the main highway, just using the land to cross through. Ochel, not only that, so no threat of war whatsoever. Ochel b'kesef tashbareni, you shall sell to me food for money. In other words, I will purchase whatever food we eat. Va'achalti, and in that case, I will be able to consume it, I'll eat it. Umayim b'kesef titenli, and you shall give me water for money. V'shatiti, and then I will drink it. In other words, meaning I will only eat food that I have bought from you, and I'll only drink water that I've purchased from you. Rak, the only concession I want, right? Only that I should be able to traverse on my feet. Okay, let's take a look. Interesting Rashi on this. Mimi bar kedemot, right? From the desert, from the desert or the wilderness of Kedemot. Afal pi shelot sivani hamakom, despite the fact that God didn't command me likro lesichon l'shalom, to call out to Sichon with peace, terms of peace. Lamadati midbar Sinai. I learned this from our experience at the wilderness of Sinai, and that's the Kedemot, earlier times. That's the implication of that word. Min ha-Torah, from the Torah, shegadma le'olam, because originally when the Torah was introduced to the universe, to the world, Kesheba HaKadosh Baruch Hu Litna LiYisrael, when the Holy One, blessed be He, came to present it to the Jewish people, to the Israelites, Chazar Ota al Esav v'Yishmael. He went first of all and offered it to Esau and to Yishmael, to the Ishmaelites. He offered it, in other words, to these other nations, and we're somewhat familiar with that midrash. The galui lefanav, and it was revealed to him, shelo yikabluhu, that they would not accept the Torah. So, in other words, he knew ahead of time, the point is, that they would not be willing to accept the Torah. For afal pichen, but nevertheless, patach lahem b'shalom, he offered it to them in peace. In other words, he offered them terms of peace. Af ani kidamti et Sichon, and so I proceeded, right, with Sichon. I initiated with Sichon b'divrei shalom, using words of peace, offering words of peace. Beautiful, beautiful Rashi that we just had, a real nugget. Davar acher, another interpretation. Mimidar Kdemot, from this wilderness of Kdemot. Mimcha lamadati, I learned from you. Shekadamta leolam, right? Because again, you gave the world an opportunity to begin with. Yachol hayita lishloch barak echad, because you were capable of sending out one lightning blast, v'lisrof et hamitzrim, and to burn the Egyptians. Ela shalachtani, but you sent me, min Hamidbar, from the desert, from the wilderness, El Paro, to Pharaoh, Lamor, to say, Shlach et ami, I believe this is Bimatun, to send my people with, in other words, quietly, right? Deliberately. Have you can do it of your own volition. And even though God knew ahead of time, nevertheless, God still sent Moses and did this in a slow, deliberate kind of way. And we'll stop here for today. So give me a moment and I will just quickly mark this. And there we are for next time. And I'm going to stop the share. Okay. Nice seeing all of you. So glad you could be here to join us. Judith, David, hi. I didn't have a chance to say hi before. Okay. If anybody wants to say anything for the record, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording.
I was wondering about Gaza.
Yeah.
You said that the Greeks conquered the people around the Philistines, but then David was fighting the Philistines later on.
Yes.
The Philistines must have came back
Okay.
again.
Harlan, that's what confused me. So you're pointing out. So if I heard you correctly, I thought you said Greeks. They weren't Greeks. If that's what you said, they were from
Yeah.
Crete, from the island of Crete.
Oh, on a Crete.
Yes, that's
Okay.
where they came from. So what happened was these people from Crete were then later identified, and I think Rashi tries to say this, were later identified as the Philistines, but they were not the original Philistines. But
Oh.
because they settled where the Philistines had originally settled, they were termed as Philistines themselves, these people from Crete. That's how I understand it now. So that's what happened. It wasn't that these people came back. The people from Crete now became known as Philistines because they settled in that area.
Oh, I
And
see.
I would say that it's not too different from today's situation where we talk about Palestinians.
What I can't understand is where did the Palestinians come in years, generations later?
Okay, so
What did
that's
they?
yeah. Okay. There have been some studies. I'm simply informed of this. Whether or not this is the truth, I just am informed of it. Is that remember the kingdoms of Israel and Judah were split, and there
Yeah,
were nations that were brought in by the Assyrians into that northern area. They were called Samaritans at the time. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the point is that the Assyrians introduced many different nations into that area as well. And
Oh,
the research that I was informed of was that in checking out, the DNA, that in fact that there is a lot of Israelite DNA in the Palestinians. And
oh,
were they only? Yes, but what happened was because of what happened during the course of history, many of them became Muslims ultimately, which happened so much later on. But originally, they may well have been Israelites. And for us to, and if we were to recognize that, and to be able to recognize that that the title we have to this area is shared, that we share the title to this area, if that research is holds up. So with that, I'm going to stop today and thank you.